Hi everyone, good morning. Thank you for joining me today. Just give me a second to get set up here on my computer so that I can see the comments from you guys that are coming in. As I'm doing that, why don't you guys say hello so that I know where you are saying hello from and who's watching, because Facebook doesn't always tell. And then we can get started shortly. Okay, let's see. Let's see who's watching. So how's everyone doing this week? What have you guys been up to? Myself, I finally finished this challenge that I was doing, which is called July-thon. You're supposed to do like 30 minutes of physical activity every single day. So that's finally over. Thank Buddha. What else has happened this week? Last night we published the post on Rinpoche's Parinirvana. So that went out, it was quite hard to say this without turning on the tears coming on again. But it was interesting to put it politely, to put it diplomatically. A reminder of a very, very sad time for many of us. So the post is now up on Rinpoche's blog on www.7rinpoche.com, and there are something like 900 pictures in the picture gallery, and there is also a video, and the video is also available on Rinpoche's Facebook. Please go and have a look at it, do follow Rinpoche's Facebook, Rinpoche's Instagram, and Rinpoche's Twitter and YouTube. If you haven't already done so, please do follow and subscribe and like and all of that stuff. I'm just waiting for a few more people to join us before we get started. So say hi if you are on. And I think you guys may have also seen on the Kechara Facebook fan page, as well as the 7 Rinpoche Facebook fan page, updates about the completion of the work on the indoor stupa in terms of the structure itself. So the indoor stupa should be arriving, barring any unforeseen circumstances, should be arriving in Malaysia at the end of August, by the end of this month actually. So, if you guys want to get involved, there are still opportunities for volunteering, still opportunities for sponsorship and contributions as well. Alright, so going to wait for a few more people to join us before we get started. I think everyone today will probably be reading Rinpoche's Parinirvana post. Alright, so yes, today what am I going to be talking about? Do I need to introduce myself? My name is Pastor Jinai, and I am a pastor here at the Kechara Buddhist organization based in Malaysia. And today I'm going to be talking about a topic that many of us struggle with. So last week I spoke about rejection, and I talked about dealing with the different types of rejection. I talked about the different types of rejection actually, and I talked about how to deal with rejection, and I talked about how we can where rejection arises from. So I spoke about reframing rejection. I spoke about how we can separate rejection from us, and I talked about how realizing that rejection isn't always about us, that the person who rejected us in whatever circumstance that may be, they may have something else going on in their lives, and so on. Alright, so before I get started on today's sharing, I'm going to do a short prayer to ascribe the source of the knowledge that I will be sharing this morning, which, as you guys will know, in Buddhism is very important to have a lineage to have a source for the information you're sharing. We don't just make things up, right? So I go for refuge in my Lama, from whom I've received these teachings. I go for refuge in the lineage Lamas, from whom my Lama has received these teachings. Right. So just a quick reminder, if you guys have any special requests for videos or particular talk or question that you want to have answered, please let me know and I will get that done and covered in a future video for you. And before I get into things today, just wanted to let everybody know so that you can all rejoice that today's sharing is sponsored by Iman with the dedication, may all sentient beings and everyone who I care about find lasting happiness and awaken their innate, everlasting, compassionate nature and wisdom. Today's sharing is also sponsored by Jacqueline Ong Louis and also GL Sim and family with the dedication, may everyone learn and benefit from these talks and progress in their spiritual journey. So thank you guys so much for your sponsorship of these talks. If you would like to sponsor a talk, sponsor sharing or sponsor puja, there is a link in the description section of this video. And please, your support helps us to continue making these online programs available. So thank you so much for your ongoing contributions. All right, so as you can probably tell, swollen face, swollen eyes, red eyes and all of that. Yeah, yesterday, working on the Seven Rinpoche Parinirvana post and doing the composition, going through the post, started to cry. So I didn't get finished until like 4 a.m. So yeah, it's been a bit of an early start today. But anyway, so today what I'm going to be talking about is a practice that came in very useful last night. And today I'm going to be talking about the importance of diligence and the importance of enthusiasm and how to keep up diligence and enthusiasm in times of difficulty and when we face challenges. So I wanted to talk about this because I know that sometimes it's very hard for us to maintain enthusiasm and it's hard for us to continue to be diligent when we are faced with rejection many times over and over again. And when we are faced with obstacles all the time. So I'm not talking just about obstacles in our spiritual practice, I'm also talking about obstacles in a secular setting. So for example, let's say if you're an entrepreneur, then being rejected for investment over and over again, or in a Dharma center, in a Dharma environment, if you are involved in, for example, fundraising or sponsorship, then being faced with rejection from sponsors over and over again. So how do you maintain enthusiasm and how do you maintain diligence in situations like that? All right, and also how to keep up your motivation in your spiritual practice, because motivation also requires enthusiasm and also requires diligence. All right, so I know that sometimes it's hard to maintain enthusiasm, especially when times are tough like they are now. And when we have people relying on us and we are faced with all kinds of pressures, and all of us have our ups and downs, all of us have our good days, we have our bad days, our good moments and very difficult and tough moments. So that's what I want to talk about today, which is the importance of diligence and enthusiasm and how we can keep things up. So first of all, is enthusiasm important? Yes. As I have briefly just mentioned, enthusiasm is important. Why? Because if you think about it, enthusiasm and diligence are qualities that we need to practice to Buddhahood, to practice to enlightenment, to practice even to gain attainments in this lifetime alone. Why? Because we are very long ways off from enlightenment. We're very long ways off from ultimate and full and complete liberation. So being that we are such a long ways off, yes, we do need to remain diligent and we do need to maintain our enthusiasm, but we will also need to maintain it for a very long time. So how can we do that? And how do you maintain inspiration or motivation for your practice? And it does make a difference to be enthusiastic, because even in the 50 verses of Guru Devotion, it says, always be ready to stand up and serve your Lama skillfully and in an excellent manner. So does it mean that we should always be hanging around our gurus on our feet and always be ready to spring into action? Yes and no. It means that whenever our Lama has an instruction for us, it means that whenever our Lama asks something of us, it means that whenever our Lama makes a request or has an instruction, we immediately agree to do it. We jump at the opportunity to do it. We are enthusiastic to do it. We don't allow our laziness to take over. Don't allow our laziness to manifest. So yes, even within the 50 stanzas of Guru Devotion, talking about enthusiasm and diligence is present as well. All right. So what is enthusiasm? I think all of us can go and Google a definition of enthusiasm. So I'm not really going to go into that, but enthusiasm essentially is a state of mind, right? So it's important because all of us are going to face obstacles in our practice at one point or another, and so having this state of mind will be very helpful because it will help to see us through the challenges and obstacles that we will face during our practice. And will we face obstacles in our practice? Yes, we will. Oh, before I continue, I just wanted to say that if you guys have any questions about what I'm talking about today, or sharing rather, please feel free to leave me a comment or message in the comment section below, and I will answer it. All right. And if you have any thoughts to share, please also leave it in the comment section. So, enthusiasm is a state of mind, and enthusiasm and diligence are states of mind and attitudes that are important to us in our spiritual practice, because we will face obstacles in our spiritual practice. And why will we face obstacles in our spiritual practice? Because we have countless lifetimes of negative karma to contend with, and this karma will at some point fruition and present us with obstacles that, if we have enthusiasm and if we have diligence, will be very, very helpful towards helping us to overcome and to surmount these obstacles and challenges, and help us to see through it, and help us to maintain our motivation in spite of the difficulties that we will face. All right, so it's impossible that we won't face any obstacles, and it's impossible that we will never have obstacles and never face anything that will try to derail us from our practice, because we have so much negative karma. We have so much karma from countless innumerable lifetimes to contend with. All right, so at some point we will have obstacles. So having enthusiasm, having diligence will make difficult situations easier for us to bear. You see, this is why I don't really understand Facebook, because I was looking at the live stream. That's why I keep looking to the side. I was looking at the live stream, looking at the comments, and there was nothing coming in. So I thought that's really weird, because I could see people talking, and I know that there are some people who join every week. So I hit refresh, and then immediately all these comments appear. So good morning, Kok Lian. Good morning, Rally. Good morning, Sukfan. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Corinne, and good morning, Jillian. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Oh God, I feel like one of those old people who doesn't know what's going on with technology nowadays. When I was younger, I used to be like, oh, all these older people, they don't know how to use PDFs, they don't know how to use, oh God, this, that, and the other. And then nowadays, I find myself saying things like, oh, I don't really understand TikTok. But anyway, that's besides the point. Should maintain enthusiasm for technology, right? Okay, so anyway, having enthusiasm, it makes difficult situations easier for us to bear. And as I mentioned earlier, enthusiasm is a state of mind. And what Rinpoche also said is, and connected to what Rinpoche also said, is that suffering is also a state of mind. So Rinpoche always explained that everything that we experience arises from the mind. For example, enthusiasm arises from the mind, and also how much we suffer arises from the mind. So happiness arises from the mind, enlightenment arises from the mind, and so how much we suffer also arises from the mind. And when I talk about suffering, most of us will immediately think about physical pain. That's where our mind will immediately turn to, which is that suffering equals physical pain. All right, but remember, even with physical pain, I know that when you talk about pain, you're talking about the nervous system, you're talking about neurons, and you're talking about nerves firing, and you're talking about perception of pain and pain being in the brain. But even with physical pain, how much you suffer that pain, how much you experience that pain also has to do with your attitude, and also has to do with your state of mind, how much you feel that pain. And so how much you suffer after you've experienced that painful event also has to do with our attitude, and also has to do with our state of mind. And so having enthusiasm and having diligence are very, very helpful states of mind to cultivate, to help us to deal with pain and help us to deal with suffering. All right. So is a physical event something that we dwell on, something that our mind dwells on, and that we keep mulling over and over and over again, so that it causes us mental suffering for much longer than it has to? In the sense that the event has passed and is very, very long gone. but it still continues to haunt us, and it still continues to affect our actions. It still continues to affect our decisions and our behaviors and our reactions. And if you think about it, how come some people can go through very difficult and very tough situations, but still they're very enthusiastic and they're still very driven and they're still very excited towards things? Just yesterday, I watched, actually I just watched like a short part of a documentary on Netflix of all things. And it was a documentary on street food in Asia. And this particular segment covered Vietnam. And in this segment, there was this street food vendor who had experienced extremely disheartening and demotivating times, very, very difficult times. And she talked about how she had been chased by loan sharks. She had a very difficult upbringing to start with. And so when she decided to make moves to better her life and to improve her life and the life of her family, she was beset by a lot of problems. One was that she was being chased by loan sharks all the time, and some days she wouldn't make a lot of money, and so the loan sharks would come every single day to harass her. So already she was very demotivated and depressed by that. And then at the same time, she fell pregnant. But shortly after she gave birth, she very sadly lost her newborn son. So she said that coupled with the problems with the business, together with the personal loss that she had just suffered, she fell into a very deep depression and became extremely motivated. So she went to pray. She went to the temple, she went to pray. And soon after praying, she regained her motivation, she regained her enthusiasm, and she regained her drive to continue to work on the obstacles that she was experiencing, and she came to realize that she still had one son, and so it would not serve her son for her to remain depressed and for her to remain demotivated. It would affect her son. So she had to, to put it colloquially, she had to pull herself together. So how come some people can go through some extremely difficult and extremely tough situations and they can continue going, they can still keep going? And how come, some people, when they go through personal challenges or when they go through professional challenges, it affects them very, very deeply. And they find it very hard to continue to generate enthusiasm afterwards. Good morning, Miro Ted. Good morning, Pastor Antoinette. And good morning, Kevin. Thank you very much for joining me today. All right. So, yeah, how come some people can go through very difficult, tough situations, but they can still continue to find the enthusiasm to keep going afterwards? One example that Rinpoche liked to give us was that of old Tibetan monks, especially those from the older generation who experienced the events of 1959. So in particular, Rinpoche often spoke about one monk that we had the honor to meet in Nepal, in Kathmandu, in 2005. His name was Tsao Putok Rinpoche, and Tsao Putok Rinpoche has since passed on. But when we met Tsao Putok Rinpoche, he was quite old already, but he was glowing, very bright and very light, and he gave off a very light energy and very smiling all the time. Now, Tsao Putok Rinpoche had been in prison for 20 years, and because of his rank as a Rinpoche, status as a Rinpoche, Tsao Putok Rinpoche had been given the worst jobs. He had been, for example, assigned to clean the latrine. So you imagine thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of prisoners, all using the lavatories. Can you imagine what state it would be in? So to demean him and to put him down, Tsao Putok Rinpoche was assigned to clean the toilets and clean the latrines and the lavatories. And he was beaten, he was electrocuted, he was shocked with cattle prods, and he was tortured. And whenever he was discovered to be doing his sadhana, discovered to be reciting any prayers, if people found him and they reported on him, he would be beaten for it. So Tsao Putok Rinpoche had to discover a way to do his sadhana and to keep up his commitments without getting caught. So if you want to talk about diligence and if you want to talk about enthusiasm in extremely challenging, difficult circumstances, few of us in our daily life will have been in a situation as difficult and as tough as that experienced by Tsao Putuk Rinpoche. But still, in spite of his imprisonment for 20 years, Tsao Putuk Rinpoche remained very, very diligent in his practice and maintained enthusiasm. He didn't give up faith, he didn't lose hope, he didn't develop doubts in his guru. In fact, Tsao Putuk Rinpoche used his personal circumstances, as a form of purification practice. And he visualized and he meditated and he thought, by me suffering all of these physical pains, by me undergoing these difficult circumstances, may the sufferings of the High Lamas, may the sufferings of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, may the difficulties and obstacles and challenges being experienced by Ganin, Sera and Drepung ripen upon me. May I take on the negative karma, these difficult circumstances and these obstacles. May this karma ripen upon me, so that Ganin, Sera and Drepung, so that His Holiness the Dalai Lama, so that the High Lamas who are in exile will be able to reestablish the Buddha Dharma in exile, will be free from obstacles. So Tsao Putuk Rinpoche meditated on that whenever he was being beaten, whenever he was being tortured. So, as I mentioned, how many of us in our day-to-day life will experience the kind of challenging and difficult circumstances that someone of Tsao Putuk Rinpoche's status and position would have experienced. All right, so very, very rare. Now, imagine someone in that circumstance, then 20 years later, after he's released, has no trace of bitterness and has no trace of anger and has no trace of frustration in his psyche. He never once spoke about revenge. He never once spoke about how angry he was. He never spoke once about how depressed he was and how upset he was. He was very light and he was very happy and very, very easygoing. So that's why, I say, and that's why our Rinpoche says that how much we suffer and how much we don't suffer is a matter of our attitude, is a matter of our state of mind, is a matter of the attitude and the approach that we have towards the phenomena and the events that we experience around us. And so one thing that Rinpoche also always shared was that how much that we can suffer, how much that we can tolerate is a reflection of how compassionate we are. What does that mean? What it means is that when something difficult is easier, is that something difficult is easier to bear. When we remember that we're doing it for the sake of others, we can tolerate more. So, for example, Tsao Putuk Rinpoche, remembering and visualizing that he is tolerating and he's experiencing those difficulties for the sake of somebody else, for the sake of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for the sake of all the other High Lamas, for the sake of Ganin, Sera and Drepung. So visualizing and praying on that made it so much easier for him to bear the difficult circumstances that he was in, and so made it so much more easy for him to maintain his enthusiasm, maintain his diligence in his practice. All right. So when we remember that we're doing something for the sake of others, it's easier for us to remain enthusiastic, because it means that when we are enthusiastic, it means that when we are diligent, we are being enthusiastic and diligent about completing something that will benefit somebody else. So in a secular circumstance, in a secular example, that might mean that when we are involved in business, when we're involved in some kind of entrepreneurial initiative, I can't pronounce that word very well, but when we're involved in some kind of entrepreneurial initiative, that if we experience rejection, if we experience difficulties, if we experience challenges, that if we remember that we are doing it for the sake of someone else. So for example, I'm working so hard in my business so that one day my family and my children do not have to work as hard. It makes rejection much easier to bear. It makes it much easier for us to maintain our enthusiasm and to maintain our diligence in making sure that our business grows. And being that you're on the Kechara page, so I'm going to cleverly assume that most of you watching this will be Buddhist, but and most of you watching this will be familiar. But one example that all of us will be very familiar with is the example of our own Rinpoche. So how did our Rinpoche maintain enthusiasm to speak up against the ban on Dori Shukden for so many years, in spite of all the criticism and in spite of the decades of abuse that our Rinpoche received. Were there days when our Rinpoche was down or manifested being down? Yes, there were. There were some days when our Rinpoche thought, is it all worth it? Is the constant abuse and the constant vitriolic attacks and the constant swearing and all of that worth speaking up against the Dorje Shukden ban? Is it worth it going through all of this? And what Rinpoche always thought was, number one, it's worth it because Rinpoche said that he had to maintain his commitment to His Holiness Kyabje Song Rinpoche. So yes, it was worth it. And is it worth it to undergo all this abuse, this decades of abuse, to speak out against the Dorje Shukden ban? Rinpoche will always say, yes, it is, because of the number of people who would benefit if the ban is lifted, of the number of people who would benefit if they're able to connect with Dorje Shukden. So, an example that all of us will be very familiar with is the example of our own Rinpoche, which is how we can maintain enthusiasm, how we can maintain diligence, is by meditating on how someone else will benefit and how someone else will be helped if we go through all of these difficulties and obstacles and challenges. All right, so that leads me on nicely to the topic of how we can cultivate enthusiasm and diligence. And I'm going to quickly refresh the page again because it's not refreshing automatically. I can't see who's there. Good morning Vivacella and good morning Nigel. Thank you so much for watching from East Malaysia. So nice of you to join me this morning. Alright, so yeah, obviously now you guys are so smart, right, watching this. So obviously now you would have concluded that one of the ways of cultivating enthusiasm, one of the ways of cultivating diligence is by focusing out. So, for example, being always happy to help others. When someone asks you for help, make it your habit to say yes, or make it your habit to say okay, and do it joyfully, do it enthusiastically, do it even though you may not necessarily want to, even though you may be sleepy, even though you may be busy, even though you may have other commitments. Make it a habit. Train yourself to say yes joyfully and happily. A very, very recent example that I can share with you guys is just yesterday, 2 a.m, getting a message saying, hey, are you awake? I was just about to go to sleep and I got a message saying, hey, are you awake? And it came from somebody who is always very helpful and extremely helpful to others. So I could not in good conscience say no, or I could not in good conscience just ignore the message. So I said yes. Even though I honestly, at the bottom of my heart, just really, really, really wanted to go to sleep, I said yes. And knowing that I would be asked to do something that would, keep me up late until 4, 5, 6 a.m., I still said yes anyway. So I can tell you guys from personal experience that it's not easy. I can tell you guys from personal experience that cultivating enthusiasm sometimes isn't always easy. But I can also tell you from personal experience that after you've made it a habit to say yes whenever anyone asks you for help, and you try your best to automatically say yes joyfully, it gets easier over time. Does it mean that you will be taken advantage of? Does it mean that at some point somebody will ask you for help and they are asking you for help for their own benefit? Maybe. Actually, most likely yes. You will run into some people who will invariably try to take advantage of you, of course. But their motivation for asking you for help does not detract from your practice and your attempt to cultivate enthusiasm and to cultivate diligence and joyous effort. At the end of the day, the reason why they're asking you for help and the reason why they're approaching you does not detract from your practice. And at the end of the day, you are the one who reaps the benefit of developing and cultivating your enthusiasm and diligence. So yes, you may run across people who will try to take advantage of your goodwill, who will try to take advantage of your helpfulness, who will try to take advantage of your helpfulness, and who will try to take advantage of your enthusiasm. Of course, you'll run across people like that. But the reason why they're asking you for help will have no bearing on you, because you are the one who will be reaping the benefits of cultivating enthusiasm. When you do it over and over again, what you can do is you can reframe, not refrain, you can reframe their request for assistance as a challenge, as an opportunity for you to practice your enthusiasm. You remain enthusiastic in spite of the most difficult circumstances, which is knowing that somebody else is trying to take advantage of you. Now, as I say that, something else just comes to mind, which is do it with wisdom, which means if someone's trying to scam you, then please don't say yes enthusiastically. That is not what I'm saying at all, okay? So someone is emailing you, asking you for help, and all you need to do is send them $32,000 to this Western Union name, and they will for sure send you $10 million once their accounts are unfrozen with your 32,000 US dollars. Please don't say yes joyfully, all right? That is not what I'm talking about at all, okay? So please don't do that, all right? That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when someone asks you for help, like, can you help me with this project? I don't understand this. Can you go through it with me? And you're extremely busy at the time, but you still say yes anyway. I'm talking about stuff like that. I'm not talking about very obvious scams, okay? Please don't say yes to scams. I did not say that, all right? Just putting it out there so you guys don't be like, oh, Pastor Gina, you told me to say yes to the email that I received. I did not. All right, so anyway, jokes aside, the first thing you can do is focusing out and cultivating a habit to always be happy to help others. And remember that, oh, good morning, Stacey. Thank you for joining us from Florida. I hope the situation there is improving, COVID pandemic-wise. Please stay safe. So in terms of how we can cultivate enthusiasm, one way is by focusing out and by developing a habit to always happily and joyfully be happy to help others. And remember also that one moment is not the next, and that each moment you make is a new decision. So sometimes we do badly one day, and we find that it's demotivating for us the following day, and so we think about discontinuing it. So one example that many of us will be very familiar with, especially in January when we're all making New Year's resolutions. One example we'll all be familiar with when it comes to doing things badly one day and then finding it very demotivating. The next is new diets. So some of us are very, very bad in maintaining new diets. And what is it that people always say? Crash dieting is very bad for you, and it's more about developing a new lifestyle, developing a new habit. And that is exactly it. So sometimes we do very badly in our diets one day, and we feel like we've cheated. And so we think, oh, you know what? Since I've broken my diet for today, who cares? I'll just break it again tomorrow. Right? So in moments like those, it's very important for us to remember that one moment is not the next, and that each moment is an opportunity for us to make a new decision. So if we're slow one day, it doesn't mean that we're to be slow the next day. If we do badly in something one day, it doesn't mean that we have to continue doing something badly the next day. And the example that Refuge always gave was the example of us doing our sadhana, or the example of us, breaking our vows or breaking our commitments. Refuge said so many times, so often, that if you forget to do your sadhana today, it does not mean that you have to forget doing it again tomorrow. If you break a vow today, it does not mean that you have to continue to break your vow again tomorrow. If you are unable to uphold a commitment to your lama today, it does not mean that you have to continue failing to uphold it again tomorrow. So sometimes it's hard for us to maintain enthusiasm, because when we experience one setback and when we experience one challenge or obstacle or failure or whatever, it's hard to maintain our enthusiasm because we somehow think that that one particular setback or that one particular moment is a reflection of the rest of our lives. And it's not. We need to remember that that one moment, that one setback is a reflection of that one moment alone. And so that one moment does not have to influence the next. That one time when we forget to do our sadhana does not have to influence the following day when we have another opportunity to do a sadhana. That one moment when we break our vow is not a reflection on us having to break our vow every single moment for the rest of our lives. The next moment that we come across is the next opportunity for us to hold that vow. And so every single moment, if you approach every single moment like that, then you can see that it becomes much easier for us to maintain our enthusiasm, because that one particular failure, that one particular setback is not a reflection on our ability or lack of ability, or not a reflection on our character or our qualities, and not a reflection of our ability to maintain or to do or to be successful in that particular endeavor for the rest of our lives. All right, so remember that one moment is not the next, and that each moment is a new opportunity for us to make a new decision. All right, so if you guys want a particular talk that Rinpoche gave, which was which Rinpoche elaborated on in great detail on this. Rinpoche once gave a talk called Discovering Karma, and it's available on Rinpoche's blog. It's also available on Rinpoche's YouTube. And in that talk, Rinpoche spoke about the types of karma, so positive, negative, neutral, and how we can change karma from moment to moment, and the factors that can change our karma and can influence our karma. All right, so that's one talk which, if you guys are interested in, I will post a link in the description section of this video after this live stream is over. But that talk, Rinpoche elaborated on in much more detail about how each moment is an opportunity for us to make a new decision. All right, so if we, for lack of a better word, mess up now, it does not mean that we have to mess up again in 1 second time, in 1 minute time, in an hour's time, in a day's time, a week's time, and so on. All right, so if we fail now, just start and pick up where you left off. Don't use what has just happened, as an excuse, or to put it more diplomatically, as a reason for us to continue failing. All right, just pick up wherever we left off. And when you treat each moment like that, you don't even need to think consciously about cultivating enthusiasm. You don't even need to think consciously about cultivating diligence, because if you approach each moment like that, you will automatically be falling into a pattern or falling into a habit of cultivating diligence and enthusiasm. All right. Something else that's very important for us to remember when we're trying to cultivate enthusiasm, or we're trying to cultivate diligence, is remember to be kind and remember to be patient to yourself. All right. Sometimes when we are in a moment of failure, sometimes when we experience a setback, it's very easy for us to think that we are the only person experiencing this setback in all of time. Now, as I'm saying that, I'm sure you guys can already picture and imagine how absolutely ludicrous it is to imagine that we are the only person in the entire history of time to have ever failed in business. We are the only person in the entire history of time to have ever been passed over for a promotion. We are the only person in the entire history of time to have ever been picked last for a sports team. How dumb does it sound, right? How illogical does it sound? But I also completely understand that in that moment when we are undergoing that experience, it's very hard for us to remember that we are not the only person who is suffering that situation. All right, but that's where being kind and being patient with ourselves comes in. Is when you remember that you're not unique, you stop beating yourself up so much, and you stop giving yourself such a hard time. Because if other people have gone through it as well, and there are other people to whom we can look at or to look towards as good examples, then it gives us a little bit of hope for ourselves, for our own practice. All right, it's very easy and it's very common for us to suddenly find that suddenly we're not enthusiastic about our practice. Suddenly we're feeling a little bit lazy, about doing practice, about doing sadhanas, about doing prayers. It's very common for us and very easy for us to find that suddenly our daily routine completely overwhelms us. Something that I very, very, very often experience or hear from people is, "Hey, Pastor Gina, I have no time to do my sadhana. I have so much work to do. I have so many meetings to attend. I have so many people to go and see. I have, to take my children here lah, and so on and so on and so on." So I'm not saying that as a form of judgment. I'm just saying that as a description. It's very common for many, many people to fall into that kind of situation where we find that our daily routine suddenly completely overwhelms us. It's common for stress and for familiar obligations to take over our lives until we don't have any energy to, or we feel like we don't have any energy to put towards training or to put towards meditation. It's very common for us to experience something very big or something very life-changing, like a death in the family, that disrupts our priorities and disrupts our schedules. So all of these things and all of these events that crop up, they are very common. That's what I want you guys to remember. That's what I want you guys to think about, is that it's very normal for us to experience all of these things. So being that it's very normal, these events, and we should think that these events are not a statement of our commitment or our wish to do practice, and should not be used as excuses or reasons for us not to continue. When you come across these things, when you're feeling lazy, when you're feeling a lack of motivation to, or lack of enthusiasm to engage in your practice, when suddenly something disrupts your schedule, it's very normal. Just think and be kind and be patient with yourself. Just think it's very normal and just pick up where you left off. Just restart. That's it. Don't need to get so complicated. Don't need to be so complicated and overthink things and think, oh my God, it means that I've broken my samaya with my teacher. It means that I've broken my commitments with our teacher. It means that I've broken my vows. As Refuge always said, yes, we broke our vows, but we only broke it for that moment. We didn't break it for every other moment that is to come. All right? So don't use yesterday's failures as an excuse for us to continue failing, or for us to continue, or for us to stop. Because if we stop, and we totally stop, when we totally stop, that will be the failure. All right? But as long as we keep trying, we are making a little progress. So when we face setbacks, when we face a lack of enthusiasm, be kind. Remember that it's not just us that goes through this every single day for months. Right? We're not unusual, we're not unique, we're not special in that sense. And we can take comfort in that fact that we're not unique and special in that sense. Right? And being that that's the case, then we shouldn't use what we've experienced yesterday or what we have failed to do yesterday as a reason to continue to fail in doing it. So just start. All right? That's how we can help ourselves to cultivate enthusiasm, is just start. If we have stopped, just start again. All right? And even if we're distracted, and even if we're thinking about something else, even if our mind is wandering to something else, just start. Because just by doing it, even by doing it whilst we are distracted, it will still leave some kind of positive imprint in our mind. Even if you're doing a sadhana and you're thinking, oh my God, I really need to rush through this, just do it. Because doing it will help to reinforce the habit of doing it. And that's how you cultivate diligence. That's how you cultivate enthusiasm, is by doing it over and over again, in spite of your state of mind, in spite of what you're thinking at the time, in spite of how you're distracted at the time. So yes, when you're meditating, are you thinking about lunch? Many of us do. Are you thinking about what to have for dinner? Many of us do. Yes. So, although you're still thinking about that, yes, our motivation at the time, our visualization at the time may not be the best. It may not be 100% perfect, but just by doing it, we are already reinforcing the habit of doing it. And so that's how you cultivate diligence, is by doing it in spite of everything else that's happening around you. How can you keep yourself motivated? How can you cultivate enthusiasm in spite of these things? Very simple. One of the ways that all of us will be very familiar with is by seeking out like-minded people. who can help to keep us motivated, who can help to keep us enthusiastic. So secularly, that means looking for people who want the same things as you, and people who understand what you are interested in, people who can keep you motivated, who can offer you ideas, who can encourage you. So let's say you are interested in business. That means, for example, going to events, going to seminars where people are interested in the same thing, where people can discuss the same things with you. Personal example here, Julyathon. I did 31 days of exercise every single day for 31 days. After having not exercised for 15 to 16 years, doing 1 month of physical activity every single day was very difficult. But how I overcame that, which is not that big of an obstacle to overcome, to be honest, but how I overcame that was I talked to friends who were doing the same thing. So, every single day, just encourage each other. So secularly speaking, seek out like-minded people who are interested in the same things as you, who will help by virtue of a shared interest to keep you motivated and to keep you enthusiastic. Spiritually, how can we keep ourselves motivated and enthusiastic and diligent? Just refreshing. Good morning, Devi. Thank you for joining us this morning. And good morning, Tenzin Kyapsum, and good morning, Yo Miaoki. Thank you for joining us this morning. All right. So spiritually, how we can keep ourselves motivated is, remember what we took refuge in. All right. We took refuge in the 3 jewels. Excuse me. So we took refuge in the 3 jewels. So when we feel like our practice has stalled, when we feel like our practice has slowed down, or when we feel like we're losing motivation, turn back to the 3 jewels and really take refuge in them. Don't just recite Namo Guru Be, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Guru Be, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Guru Be, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya, like that. Don't just rush through it, but really meditate and really feel and really understand what we are taking refuge in. Take refuge in Alama, Namo Guru Be, and take refuge in him, take refuge in his kindness. And take refuge and remember and meditate on the challenges that he went through to bring the Dharma to us. Take refuge in the Dharma and meditate on it. Take refuge in our Dharma brothers and sisters, so in our Sangha community, and talk to them. Talk to our close friends, talk to our good friends within our Dharma community, whether that's online or whether that's offline. And in talking to them, you can find inspiration and find encouragement to continue your practice. Because what you will find is that, like I mentioned before, you are not the only person who has slowed down or stalled in your practice. Things may look rosy on the outside, but you will always find in talking to people that people will go through the same ups and downs and the same obstacles to their practice as you. And so by talking to them, you can find encouragement, you can find practice, and find that you are not alone in this, very cliche term, but you're not alone in this journey. All right. How else can you maintain or cultivate enthusiasm or diligence in times when spiritually you feel like your practice is stalled or slowed down? Go and volunteer in your temple. Go and volunteer in your Dharma center. And I'm not saying that just as like a kind of commercial break to encourage you guys to come and volunteer, but I'm saying that as a practical suggestion for us to continue to cultivate enthusiasm. Because when we're in an environment of like-minded people, and we're in an environment of people who want the same things, who are trying to work towards the same goal, it is indirectly motivating. It is indirectly a nice boost to us. Spending time in that kind of spiritual environment, which Rinpoche always encouraged us to do, there are blessings there. There is inspiration there. And that's why Rinpoche always encouraged us to come and spend time in Kechara Forest Retreat, to go and spend time in Kechara House. It's because there are blessings there in that kind of environment by virtue of the prayers that have been done, by virtue of the pujas that have been done, by virtue of the virtuous activities that have been conducted in that place. Alright, so when you are feeling like you've slowed down or you've stalled in your practice, go and volunteer in your temple, go and volunteer in your Dharma center and spend time there. So in our case, volunteer in KFR, or volunteer in Kechara House, contact Lee Kim and ask her what you can help with in Kechara House. All right. So finding like-minded people who have a shared interest with us is a very, very simple, very practical way for us to maintain our enthusiasm and diligence, because we're social animals, we're social creatures. We like being buddy-buddy with people. We like doing things together with people. And so by being in that kind of environment, you will find that you are kind of pushed along and kind of motivated anyway, without even thinking about it. All right? Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, which might seem like it's contradictory to what I just said, which is, that we're social animals and that we should seek out like-minded people. Another way of maintaining enthusiasm, cultivating enthusiasm and diligence in our practice is doing a retreat. All right? So the most common reason for why we stop, or the most common reason for why we slow down in our practice, is that we get distracted. And everyone gets distracted. Even people who live in KFR get distracted, right? Because we're still practicing. So doing retreats is a very, very helpful way of putting ourselves back on the path. Being that the most common reason for why we stall or slow down our practice is because we get distracted, doing a retreat is the perfect counter to that, because we are carving out a few days for ourselves just to focus on our spiritual practice and just to develop a routine and to supercharge our merits, provide a much stronger base and foundation for our practice. All right, so if you're finding that daily life or routine is distracting us, is overwhelming us, is making it difficult for us to maintain any level of diligence in our practice, or to maintain enthusiasm or motivation for practice, another practical approach that we can apply is by doing a retreat. So scheduling a retreat for yourself, and also studying and learning more. All right. Oh, sorry. Just keep having to refresh it to see if there are any questions. So studying and learning more. Why? Because when we study and we learn more and we really understand karma, we really understand the causes of suffering, automatically, Rinpoche was explained that when we understand karma, we understand the causes of suffering, automatically a desire to practice will arise in us, a desire to escape samsara, to leave samsara, and to apply all of the methods to leave samsara will arise in us because of our deeper and broader understanding of karma. So studying and learning more and more and more will keep reinforcing that desire in us and reinforce in us, a sense of diligence for the methods that we need to apply in order to counter, in order to create the causes for us to leave samsara. I'm so sorry, my nose is very itchy, and I know that I should not keep touching my face given the current times, but I would also like to say that I have been using hand sanitizer. My hands are perfectly clean, all right? So anyway, that aside, studying and learning more, and adding to our knowledge, and adding to our understanding of karma and the causes, and they're the causes of suffering, will reinforce in us the need, the importance, the urgency, the sense of urgency to practice to leave samsara. And so that will indirectly contribute to our sense of diligence and our level of enthusiasm to practice to leave samsara. And when we're feeling lazy, and when we're feeling demotivated, or when we're feeling like the obstacles are too great for us to continue, remember that that sense of laziness is an obstacle in and of itself. And so enthusiasm itself is a counter to laziness. And that's why I talked about much earlier about developing a habit to always, to joyfully and quickly say yes whenever anyone asks for help. Because sometimes when we feel reluctant to help somebody else, that reluctance arises from laziness. And so if you remember that laziness is a manifestation of our negative karma as an obstacle for us to pursue spiritual practice, then remember that enthusiasm and cultivating enthusiasm, meditating on the fact that we should cultivate enthusiasm, and meditating on the fact that enthusiasm is a counter to laziness will be very, very helpful to us in our cultivation of diligence and enthusiasm. All right. So when we feel lazy to practice, when we feel very lazy to do something that's virtuous, and it will happen, that's our negative karma fruitioning to stop us from pursuing it. So meditate on why on the benefits of cultivating enthusiasm, and meditate on the fact that, when it comes to pursuing non-virtuous activities, we never experience laziness. So meditate on that. Why is it that some of us on a Friday night can sit in traffic to go down to KL to have dinner, or go to Klang to have dinner, or go to wherever to have dinner, and we can sit in traffic for hours just to eat, have absolutely no problems with that. But when someone says, hey, let's go for a Dharma talk, immediately we're like, ayo, I have to sit in traffic for 30 minutes. I have to sit in traffic for 45 minutes. Aiya, so far away. Aiya, I would rather do this instead. The talk is so early. Why wake up for the talk? I would rather sleep in. It's my weekend. I want to rest. I want to spend time with my family. Why is it when it comes to volunteering, why is it when it comes to pursuing virtuous activities, we're very, very lazy? But when it comes to pursuing non-virtuous activities, we're super enthusiastic. So laziness is an obstacle. Laziness is a manifestation of our negative karma to stop us from pursuing positive things, to stop us from pursuing virtuous things. So to help us to cultivate enthusiasm, to help us to cultivate diligence, remember and meditate on the fact that enthusiasm is a counter to laziness. All right. And finally, how we can add a supercharged spiritual battery to this is by meditating on what His Holiness Kyabje Pabongka Rinpoche taught, which is that His Holiness Kyabje Pabongka Rinpoche asks us to meditate on precious human life, or as the scriptures would put it, the preciousness of a human rebirth. When you meditate on the fact that death is certain, but the timing of death is not, it's very easy for us to gain renewed enthusiasm, because you don't know when your opportunity to practice will end. You don't know when it will be cut short. For us, for our practice, it should be that it's realizing that this human life gives us the capability and gives us the opportunity to practice Dharma. Good morning, Hui Xian Zeng or Zeng. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. And good morning, Sharon. Hello. All right, so meditate on what His Holiness Kyabje Pabongka Rinpoche asks us to do, which is to meditate on the preciousness of a human life, or as the scriptures would put it, the preciousness of human rebirth, which is that when you meditate on the fact that that death is certain, but the timing of death is not, it's easy to gain renewed enthusiasm, because you don't know when your opportunity to practice will be gone. You don't know when your karma to be in this life will be over. One example that stands out very, very strongly, that's very salient, very strong in my mind, is something that happened, or something that not happened, something that I heard about happened when I was in university. And this was when I was 20, 21. And you would think that at the age of 20, 21, you're young, you're healthy and all of that, right? And as they put it, the world is your oyster. I heard that one night someone went home, and someone my age went home, and they never woke up again. Someone of my age at the time, 2021, he went to sleep, and overnight his heart stopped beating. Like, he just went to sleep and that's it. He never woke up again. Right? And that was someone who was 21 years old. You would think that they would be fit and young and healthy, but the karma for them to be a human, to have this human rebirth, just ran out. And we never know when that will happen for any of us. You don't know when it will just suddenly end. The example that, like my mother, this example that my mother always gave is that she always told me, I trust you, but I don't trust other drivers. So I may be a perfectly safe driver, but anything, literally anything can happen on the road. I don't know what will happen on the road. And it's my karma, right? So at any moment, any series of events could happen that suddenly my karma to be alive is gone. Suddenly my karma to be a human is gone. I could step out on the street and suddenly get hit by a bus. Just simply meditating on the complexities of our human body, what keeps our heart beating, what keeps our liver working, what keeps our kidneys functioning, what keeps all of these things going, and what prevents them from stopping at any moment. They could literally just stop like this. As soon as I end this live stream, even on this live stream, it could just end. I'm so sorry to be that morbid. I'm so sorry to be that realistic. But if you think about it, if you meditate on that fact, it's true. At any moment, life can end. Life as you know it can end, right? So when you think about it that way, when you think about the fact that when you close your eyes at night, that may be the last time you ever close your eyes, and you may never open them again. And you meditate on that every day. If you're doing the meditation correctly, you will automatically generate a sense of urgency towards your practice, because you don't know when will be your last moment to practice. And so suddenly, the methods that our Lama gives us and the commitments that our Lama gives us become very, very precious, because we don't know when our karma will run out in this life to be able to hold them, or to be able to continue with them, and to be able to practice them. When you meditate on that, then diligence arises naturally. Enthusiasm to practice arises naturally, because you don't know when will be your last chance to practice. All right, so what happens if in our next life we don't come back as a human? What happens if in our next life we come back as a frog? What happens in our next life if we come back as a dog? We may come back as a dog in a temple, for example, because we have tremendous imprints for Dharma, tremendous Dharma imprints. But we may come back as a dog in a temple, we may come back as a dog in a monastery, close to the Dharma, but unable to actually practice ourselves. Why the human life is so precious is because, as you know, His Holiness Kapje Pawaga Rinpoche mentioned, as our Guru Sam Rinpoche mentioned, human life is the only life in which we can actually practice, in which we can actually apply Dharma and apply the methods that will lead us out of suffering, that will lead us to ultimate liberation. And so what if in your next life, we don't come back as a human, we come back as a dog, close to Dharma but unable to practice? And so when you meditate on that, and you meditate on how short our human life is and how quickly it can end, and how at any moment, any set of circumstances can come together to bring about that very sudden end, urgency, diligence, and enthusiasm will automatically arise. All right, and that's for our spiritual practice. That's applicable to our spiritual practice, but it's also applicable to our daily life around us. Because if you think about it, if you think about how life can end at any moment, then are all of the hurtful words that we've said to other people worth it? Are all of the arguments that we've instigated or initiated worth it? Are the harmful actions that we plan to commit or that we have committed worth it? So when you think about it that way, and you think about how death can come to us at any time, and then automatically you think, I should speak kindly, I should act kindly. If I have had an argument with somebody, I'm going to go make it up to them. If I've had an argument with somebody, I'm going to apologize to them sincerely now. I'm going to apologize to them before it's too late, before I can't do so anymore. If you're a child, if I've got homework, do it. If you want to ask somebody out, there's someone that you are interested in, do it. If there is a business opportunity that you wish to pursue, go for it. All right, so when you meditate on death, you meditate on the certainty of death, but you meditate on the uncertainty of its timing. People always say that Buddhists are very morbid for doing that, but it's not. Buddhists, I would beg to differ. I would actually say that Buddhists are very realistic. We are trying to maintain a sense of realism and trying to maintain a perspective that's realistic all the time. And so when you meditate on death, there are many, many benefits to it. For example, diligence, for example, urgency, for example, enthusiasm, for example, being able to live life fearlessly. Because you know that at the end of the day, all of the things that we are afraid of, well, most of the things that we're afraid of in this life will not affect us at the moment of death. They're not that important at the moment of death. So things like fear of rejection, fear of failure no longer become important because there is something that's much greater than that, which is death. All right, so why be afraid of failure? Why be afraid of rejection when that sense of failure and rejection will not be in any way, shape or form important to us at the moment of our passing? But what will be important to us at the moment of our passing are all of the virtuous actions and deeds that we have committed and all of the spiritual practice that we have done. All right, so that is it from me for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me today in this sharing on cultivating, or rather on the importance of enthusiasm and diligence, and on how we can cultivate and maintain enthusiasm and diligence in the face of the setbacks and challenges and obstacles that we face in everyday life and in our spiritual practice, and the sense of demotivation that all of us go through at some point, and the distractions that all of us have to face at some point. All right, so let me quickly see this. Okay, so as far as I can tell, because like I said, Facebook is super buggy today, there are no questions in the comment section below. So, oh, okay, hang on. There's a question here from Mark. Pastor Jinai, if I may beg the name of the Rinpoche you mentioned in your talk here once again. This Rinpoche's name, Mark, his name was Tsawa Putok Rinpoche. So Tsawa-Phultok or Pulthok, depending on the transliteration that you go by. But his name was Tsawa Putok Rinpoche. And you mentioned, I believe I've read the harrowing story of his enduring captivity after invasion in 1915. So yes, Rinpoche has actually mentioned it before on the blog about this Lama, Tsawa Putok Rinpoche. But and if you're interested, I will dig up the link and I'll post it for you in the comment section below. And I will, post in the comment section for you below. All right. So it looks like that's it for today. If you guys have any more questions, or if I have not managed to get to your question because we're super out of time, there's always this challenge, right? Pastor Gina, you talk too fast, but Pastor Gina, you also talk too long. So anyway, we're out of time. So if you guys have any questions, or please leave them in the comment section of this video, and I'll get to them as soon as this live stream is over. Before I go, I just want to leave you guys with a reflection for the past week. So reflect on moments when you've been requested for assistance in the past week and the attitude that you have brought through to the interaction with somebody else. Were you enthusiastic with it? And if so, if you were, give yourself a pat on the back and think about how you can continue that and develop that into a habit. If you were not, think about how you could have done things differently. So how you could have potentially or possibly improved the interaction with somebody else, and make it a point that in the coming week, if the person asks you for help again, say yes. All right. If it's appropriate, go and apologize to them and say, I'm so sorry that I wasn't able to help you last week. But if you do need any help this week, please let me know how I can be of further assistance. All right. So as we move into this week, try to make a concerted effort that when someone requests you for assistance or someone requests you for help, no matter how tired you are, no matter how busy you are, no matter how distracted you are, try and say yes. And as I'm saying this, I'm sure you very, very, very smart people can already guess that that is how you start also to cultivate bodhicitta. And that is how you keep yourself on the path to attaining bodhisattvahood. Because in spite of how you feel, you put others first before yourself, right? So as we move into the new week, the next time somebody asks you for help, no matter how tired, lazy, sleepy, distracted, busy you are, do your best to say yes, all right? And just quickly before I go, a reminder of upcoming programs on the Chinese Kechara Facebook fan page. Today at 10 p.m. there'll be the Doji Shukden Sadhana. So 10 p.m, not 2 p.m, all right? There'll be the Doji Shukden Sadhana with Pastor Shin, as well as the live chat with Pastor Albert at 3 p.m. And on Tuesday on the Kechara Facebook fan page, Tuesday at 8 p.m. there'll be the Sam Rinpoche Swift Return Puja, which will be led by Pastor Hani, as well as at 9:30 on the Kechara Facebook fan page, this page, sharing by Pastor David, Easy Dharma for the New Normal. All right, so thank you guys so much for joining me today on week 11 of these Sunday Dharma sharings. If you have any requests for prayers or for dedications or for offerings to be made, please leave me a comment at the bottom of this video. And don't forget to do your dedications. Once this live stream is over, I will do mine separately. And once again, I want to thank the sponsors of today's sharing, today's talk, because you guys with your contributions made this talk possible. So your support helps us to keep making these programs available. So thank you so much for your support, all right? And if you would like to donate, again, there are links in the description section of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching and for joining me this morning. I will see you same time, same place next week. On this Facebook fan page, all right, at 10 a.m. After I end this live stream, please do go read the article on Rinpoche's blog regarding Rinpoche's Parinirvana. Watch the video, read the blog, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.